everybody, this is Perch. As we look to figure out how to grow and expand comics, one of the missing elements that I think the clues were there in the early '90s, but the publishers for a variety of reasons have kind of ignored this. Uh, it's understanding how the comic is made. I think there's more interest than kind of ever before in understanding this process. People do like certainly adventures inside the pages. They want to know where the characters are going. They're curious about the storylines and everything else. But there's more interest that has been building for a long time to really get to know the creator. And I think that in the '90s, the early '90s, you certainly saw this cult of personality is way too strong of a term and a word for this. But with the rise of Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee in particular, and then them heading off to Image and doing their thing, um, there was this the artist, the creator, is larger than life. They're a bigger factor to the book, and Todd McFarlane doing something was a bigger draw than Spider-Man doing something or than Wolverine doing something. It was like Todd McFarlane. What's Todd McFarlane up to? How does he work? What is he interested in? How does he draw? What's his process? That kind of desire to want to know more about Todd and kind of how the worlds that Todd was bringing to the stage was more powerful than these characters that had been around for decades. And you did see a huge audience leave basically to go chase Spawn, this unknown character, or Wildcats, or Youngblood, or what have you. And it was more about the creators, more about the individual behind the pencil, as opposed to these characters that were being made. I mean, there were criticisms in the early '90s that a lot of the Image characters felt derivative. They felt like they weren't the most unique. There were jokes about team books where you need one big hulking guy that's a Colossus or a Thing type, and then you need some sexy ninja warrior type, and then you need one more brainy female type, and then you need a Wolverine slash Hawkeye type character in there. And it just there's this kind of this checklist of the types of characters that you needed in these books in order to make them go, and they were all largely using the same formula. But regardless of that, the comics sold well, and they sold well, not because people were eating up that formula, but because they were hungry to learn about Jim Lee and Todd and others. And it makes sense a little bit that Marvel, kind of in response to these big creators leaving, would largely de-emphasize the creators, certainly in the years that followed, but they've kind of constantly done that. They've pushed the writer more over the last 20 years, certainly, because the writer is an easier commodity. The writer is crafting stories based on these characters. The writing style doesn't shine through like the art style does. Now that's a bit of a loaded statement because you always know, when say Bendis is doing a comic, you could pick up on his style. But generally speaking, most writers they were good storytellers, but they didn't have that same kind of immediate, unique pop. You couldn't stare at a page of text and immediately know who was writing the book in most cases. But you could with artists. Artists, even from a distance, you can immediately pull out kind of this eye-popping image, and so the creator being more important than the characters was what certainly Marvel and DC didn't want, and that's why they took the path they did. But the other aspect to all this was what I mentioned before, which I think the customers were sending us a message, and the message was, hey, we like learning about what the creator is doing. We like seeing more of their style. And you see lots of clues to this. Wizard would run little articles showing like the artist's studio, or you'd get to know the artist a little bit. And Wizard was highly popular for a lot of reasons, but I think this was one of them. It was giving people a look behind the curtain. They were getting to know who these people were. If you fast forward to today and kind of social media, one of the things people do like to do is kind of get to know what the creators are like beyond just their creations, beyond just their drawings. That's a double-edged sword because as people have learned more, they've discovered things they don't like, and then that's caused a backlash and kind of some brawling back and forth. But overall, that desire and that hunger is there. I do think that's one of the reasons why people get so enraged and take it very personally when a creator blocks them. It's basically being shut off from that life. And I think in general, people want to connect. They want to connect with creators. They want to connect with these creations. And I think the clue there for publishers or anybody making a book is that if you want to kind of generate a tighter bond with your customer, which is going to in turn mean, more regular money and just kind of a good, a good attachment to your customer that you can bank on. You have to kind of show more than just a comic. You have to talk about how it was created, what were your sketches, your plot summary, kind of where your inspiration came from. I've seen creators put out the music list, like a listening list, to read their comics while listening to these tracks. Kieran Gillian has done that for a lot of his books. Like here's the track list for this comic, and that tends to be popular. People like to connect in that way. Um, I think that if you're a brand new creator, if you're doing something kind of on, even on a Webtoons or a crowdfunded book or just something, or maybe you're starting at the big two or three or four, wherever, you're basically starting off on your career. I think one of the most helpful things you can do is kind of take a little bit of time, write those blogs, take those pictures, whatever it happens to be, and kind of show the process. Here's what I was doing. Here's what I went through. Here's how these characters are developed. Here's what I listened to. Here's what I ate. I mean, you can make it as creepy or personal as you want, but I think that this level of wanting to connect with you as a creator it's something that the customers are clearly sending a message that that's what they want to do, that they'll spend more, that they'll be more attached, that they'll forgive mistakes more if that connection is made. And it's one of those areas where in many cases Marvel and DC are going to be very hesitant to open those doors because they don't want what happened in the 90s to occur again. They don't want these creators to become more powerful than the creations. But I think it's inevitable, especially with a lot of these creations that have been around for 50 plus years. There's plenty of good stories that you can tell about Superman and Batman and Spider-Man and the Avengers and so on. But the customers want to see a little bit more than that. They want to actually know how you're thinking about these things. And so I see this as a powerful tool that new creators can use in order to get attachment and to kind of build up their fan base and their connection faster. I think you're seeing evidences all over the place, but I don't know that anyone necessarily articulates it that way. James Tinian has a newsletter that he puts out. It's a way to keep connected with the fans, is what it said. But I think that there's more to it than that. I think that there's a financial interest. There's a strong customer drive to have this connection be tighter than it's been before. And whether it's a character like Batman or some brand new independent creation, people want to see the behind the scenes. They want to know more about how it was made. I would speculate that reality TV and some of kind of the shows and that have gone on that are designed to kind of peel back the curtain and show you more of the behind the scenes making of something, or how these things came to be. I think that's part of it. But I think if you're Marvel, I think or DC, but so let's say if you're Marvel, I think one of the things that you're going to need to do to really create attachment is you're going to start to have to peel back a little bit of the process of how things are done, how the script was made, kind of some of the earlier ideas that didn't make it, what got scrapped, early character designs, all that kind of stuff. And this is going to definitely boost your creators, your writers, your artists, your people working on the comic. It's going to make them more important. I see things. There's a couple creators who send me photos of things. I mean, there's one creator who builds models of these vehicles that are being designed and like physical models, and it's amazing. It's incredibly cool stuff. And I just want that's the kind of marketing that blows away any of these kind of inorganic campaigns that get run. Some of these pieces that the big two and others try and promote. You look at like a company like Bad Idea; they're doing various marketing stunts to kind of get their attention. But the easiest, simplest answer is make it more personal for the creators working on the books. And yes, of course, if the creators turn out to be kind of crazy and they do lunatic things, that's gonna be bad. But that's where you just have to be careful about who you're peeling back the curtain on. But I think this is a very obvious message that customers are telling companies that they seem to just continually miss a little bit. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Do you want to know more behind the scenes? And when I say more, I'm not talking about like who they vote for. I'm talking about how they come up with the ideas they come up with, what was done in order to make this comic a success. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Let me know if that's of interest to you. But it feels like there's a lot of evidence to suggest that this is what people want. Just maybe nobody's listening. Thanks for listening.